Hi, everyone. This is Sam Black continuing my review of Crimson Vow as enabled by or informed by 17 Lands. As always, thanks to 17 Lands for existing. You're great. Anyone who is not familiar, you can go to 17lands.com/card ratings, see all this stuff for yourself. I don't have special access to anything. This doesn't cost anything. You can just go look at it. Um, Also, I know we're somewhere in the middle of this, but just a reminder, I am doing this set review as a subscription as a reward, a subscription reward goal for my Twitch channel. So thank you to everyone who subscribed to my Twitch channel over the past few weeks. If you are seeing this on YouTube and um, it's like what I'm like what you're seeing. You can see more of my content every night on Twitch at twitch.tv/SamuelHBlack. I do stream limited every night, so if you're finding this informative, feel free to stop by anytime for uh, more of me talking limited and playing and stuff. All right, getting back to it. Bleed Dry. Uh, Best performing black common. Finally, something that costs more than 1 mana. Uh, this is a format with a lot of very powerful rares. Many of them are creatures. You want to be able to answer them. This kills any creature in the set unless something weird is happening. And this is a set where that is valuable and black is not bad. I say where that is valuable and black is not bad because this card is basically the same card as Feed the Serpent in Kaldheim, which was not as good as it looked. People expected that it would have stats like this, and in reality, it went fairly late and wasn't particularly important. This is good here. You should take it. You should play it. Diagraph Scavenger, not necessarily a card that everyone would expect to be the second best performing black common, despite the lesson that you probably should have learned from Vampire Spawn, which had amazing stats despite just being a 2/3 that drained your opponent for 2. Also, kind of the lesson that you should have learned from every lifelink, the stats on basically every lifelink creature. Incidental life gain in limited is very good. Um, Also, Death Touch is a good ability. Also, exile and stuff, like, while it is, you have to exile a creature from a graveyard to get the Drain 2. I have played this in spots where I couldn't do that, but also exiling your opponent's stuff is very good. I've also exiled plenty of things that have Disturb with this. I think uh, overall, it's probably a little bit better than Unconditional Drain 2, but I'm not totally sure about that. It doesn't really matter. Close. Card's strong. There is certainly a potential glut at 4 mana, especially in black, especially as you see the top 2 cards are both 4-drops, especially since, as you see, this one goes relatively late compared to this one, which means you can end up with multiples of them. My first draft, I had like a lot of these and didn't feel like I could play all of them. Um, anyway, this card's good. Um, I, like I said, because of the 4 mana thing, especially since, as you see, Blood Crazed Socialite, fourth place, also 4 mana, really contributes to that 4 mana glut that you really want to be careful of with your black decks. And I would say pay attention to whether you're more aggressive or more controlling. If you're more aggressive, you might want to be deprioritizing Diagraph Scavenger, even though draining your opponent for 2 is nice, to prioritize the menace creature that can hit for 4 or for 5. And then, obviously, conversely, if you are not a deck that would want Blood Crazed Socialite, you can afford to prioritize Scavenger a little bit more highly. So, as I was saying with the white removal spells, where you're going to want to prioritize them a little bit differently depending on what your deck is doing, the same thing is true with the black 4-mana creatures that are both good, but competing for a limited amount of space at the 4 spot in the curve of your black decks. So be sure that you're paying attention to that and to which and how many good 4-drops the other color that you're playing is contributing, and make sure that you're taking into account your expectation about how many 4-mana cards you see before prioritizing good 4-mana cards too highly and ending up with a deck that has more force that you can use. Next up, pointed discussion. This is a big surprise. There are a lot of cards that are pretty similar to this that have been really bad, that have had horrible stats, and that you basically just like never take, never play. Some of that is, yeah, blood token's actually good. More importantly, I think this just is a format where you can afford to spend some life in black to draw cards. Black has a reasonable amount of life gain and can grind reasonably well. I don't think that this is a card. I mean, note that this is played much, much, much less than cards around it. So numbers should be taken with a grain of salt here. Also remember, people are only playing it when they're a deck that's good for it, presumably, or much more likely to play it in decks that are good for it. So, it's not going to keep this this win rate for you if you just put it in any deck, unless your win rate is naturally higher than that or whatever. So don't see this and say, oh, this is the third best black common, I should take this over all the black commons that are below it. I don't think that's true. I don't think you want a lot of these. I don't think you want to prioritize it. What this should say to you is, oh, wow, that thing's actually playable. If I have like a controlling deck with some removal spells and I'm looking for card advantage, basically like the more your deck is about attrition, so like the more removal spells you have, the more you can use this to do that well. But don't go overboard with this. Bloodcraze Socialite. You're getting good value here, but make sure that you're aggressive if you're going to prioritize this because of the existence of Bleed Dry and Diagraph Scavenger. I think that's basically the whole story here. Grizzly Ritual costs a lot of mana, kills the thing. 2 blood is a significant amount of blood. Getting to like loot twice once you've cast your 6-drop is pretty nice because you likely don't want more lands at this point. 6-mana sorcery speed removal is not impressive, but it gets the job done. This is a playable option. Rot-Tide Gargantua. This is a fine big exploit stuff. Or a fine big exploit thing. I think it's comparable to the other common ways to exploit things. I think the common ways to exploit things are radically worse than the common exploit creatures and common exploited creatures, the fodder that you want to sacrifice, are both radically worse than the uncommons. When you are drafting the exploit deck, you should be drafting the exploit deck because you have uncommons somewhere in the puzzle, and then you should be using the commons to complete the puzzle. This is a common that can complete the puzzle, that is a deck that is getting value out of exploit stuff. When you are not a dedicated exploit deck, this is a fine card. Like 5 mana, 5/4 is just like okay. And then when you play this, you can just evaluate like, okay, if I make my opponent sacrifice their thing, is the thing that I'm sacrificing better or worse than that thing? And then decide if you're going to use it or not. So the floor here is pretty solid. The ceiling is not amazing, but it's, pay very, very little, make your opponent sack a thing, contribute to any of your like exploit synergies or whatever that you're trying to do. Solid, not amazing. Gluttonous Guest. This is a card that I have been impressed by. Um, this gains a lot of life when you're doing the blood thing, and gaining life, incidental life gain, as we've talked about, is good. Lets you trigger life gain on command when you're doing the black-white stuff, or just in any black deck. It can enable Courier Bat, which is an important card that's very good if you can enable it reliably. And the 1/4 body has been totally reasonable as a blocker. This is just generally played pretty well for me. The basically like the life gain thing is good when you have synergies with it, and also good just in general. And just 1/4 make a blood. 1/4 is just like 1/4 for 3 is just not so bad that I'm not pretty happy about it when it comes with this other free value, this extra resource. Doom Dissenter. This is a really good Doom Dissenter format. Doom Dissenter is just such a good thing to exploit. This is the common that you're looking for to enable your exploit stuff. Well, I mean, aside from, of course, the blue 1/1 flyer that is the Lantern Bearer, given that Lantern Bearer is the best blue common for basically everyone, it's much easier to get Doom Dissenters for your exploit deck than it is to just like, oh, I'll just get a bunch of Lantern Bearers and sack those. Good luck. Whereas this is the more reliable way to do it. Undying Malice, fine trick. Well, trick is a weird way to put it, but fine utility spell, I guess, that is a lot better with exploit, where you can intentionally set it up when you want to know what it's going to do and everything. Ragged Recluse, filler 2-drop that's, good in proportion to how much blood you have, basically. Desperate Farmer, surprised that this is this low now. Anyway, this is best when paired with blue, specifically exploit, or white when you care about life gain synergies. Better with exploit than with life gain synergies, because it's more important to, like, flipping it to get the backside is the most important part of this. And then also, if you can't flip it, it doesn't work very well as a life gain enabler, because a 2/2 lifelink for 3 doesn't brawl very well. Gifted Fangs. I thought this card would be pretty good when I saw it spoiled. It has a lot of problems, specifically a lot of the small creatures that you want to kill are vampires, which means that it's not reliably a deadweight, and also deadweight isn't really the removal spell that you want. If you have vampires that, like, I think black aura give a creature +2/+2 is an interesting card. It's like not amazing, but it's also not weak. And when you're playing both sides of this as appropriate at similar frequency, I still think that, like, the modality there is very good and it can be a strong card, but I don't think that this is like premium removal for any black deck or anything. Courier Bat, I think this card's really awesome if you can trigger it reliably, and not that bad if you just have to play it on 3 to pressure your opponent, because that's what you want. Worth noting how far down we are on the black cards, where we're getting to Courier Bat now. Like, Courier Bat, yeah, I actively want that card if I'm like black-white. Blood Fountain. This is expensive, but pretty reliably good at doing the thing that it does. Like, it's 4 mana to go up a card, also gives you a blood. It's interestingly comparable to Scattered Thoughts, which makes it kind of weird to me. how low it is in Black's cards compared to how high Scattered Thoughts is. I've definitely played some games against like green black where my opponents just played some like very good creatures, and I'm like, oh no, they have a blood fountain in play. My only way to answer these things is to kill them. I can't end the game quickly. I'm gonna have to fight through all of this, like two of these things twice. I just can't do that. And like the fact that they played a blood fountain, sometimes even two blood fountains, it's just like I have no idea how I'm gonna win this game. Um, so that is to say that Blood Fountain is certainly not bad. Like we're now in like the bottom six black cards, but this card is, I think the first one is very rarely bad, and it can be quite good in some decks. Nice with exploit where you're filling your graveyard. Um, excuse me. Um, sorry. Uh, Mind Leech School. Um, this is fine, but not much better than that. The problem is the ceiling here, when you exploit something, the effect that you get is just so small that you haven't really gotten very far. Um, it's a fine playable 2-drop. It's particularly good as a way to do the steel sack thing if you want to try to get fancy with that in black red or Grixis. I think that's very fringe in this format. This is the best enabler, and if you're like playing a bunch of Mind Leech Schools and a bunch of Bloody Betrayals or whatever that threaten's called, uh, you're gonna have some awkward draws trying to line them up. This is not good playable. Persistent Specimen. Surprised by how low the stats are in this. Might indicate it being overplayed. I think it's pretty good in exploit decks that have a lot of exploits. I think if you have fewer than, I'm going to throw out a random number like 6 exploit creatures, you probably don't want this. If you have like a lot of other good fodder, you probably don't want it. But when you are very far on exploit, it is really nice to have a single card that lets you just keep doing it. Aim for the head. It's a mind rot. It has a little bit of upside, both in terms of exiling cards instead of making them discard, and the exile zombie mode. Nothing special, not particularly good win rate, whatever. Unhallowed Fangs. So this card is obviously horrible if you're not doing anything with the fact that it is. If you're not playing it in like the black green high toughness deck, this card is obviously very bad. I would hope that that means it's obviously very bad to everyone, and that this 50% win rate is its win rate like in that archetype. I guess we can check. I can just look at its win rate in black green to see how different it is. Here it's more likely that they're doing the thing. So there it moves up to 52%. So the fact that it only moves up to 52%, basically I think you need a lot of synergy pieces to think about playing this card. Like you shouldn't just be like, oh, I have this one card that it works well with. It's really bad when you draw it and you don't have that one card, so one isn't enough. You need a lot of synergies before you want to start putting this card in your deck. And it's very, very hard to get like enough copies of the things to have a lot. Vampire's Kiss. It doesn't look like a card you should put in your deck. Stats are bad. Don't play it. Uncommons. Parasitic Grasp, obvious great removal spell. Fellstinger, all upside. Literally just, you could stop reading this card at any point and it would be a good card in limited, and then it just has a bunch of different abilities that are strung together. Hero's Downfall, I mean, obvious. Restless Bloodseeker. This card's pretty sweet. It's a really it's a nice little combo with the Gluttonous Guest. where every turn you can use a blood, gain life, get your blood back. And it's very easy to get to blood in like black red in particular, but also just in general. To flip this into a 3/3, 2 mana 3/3 is pretty good, even if it costs you some blood. And then the 5 mana drain is pretty significant. Like if the game stalls out at all, that's a pretty good way to end it. And then it's also making you blood if you're willing to do it main phase. So pretty strong card, not amazing, just a strong card. Undead Butler. This is a random solid creature that's very, very good if you're exploiting. Catapult fodder. Again, like a 3 mana 1/5 is just like pretty respectable on defense, such that I'm willing to play this if I have, like 4 other creatures or something in my deck that can help flip it, where it's not like I'm reliably flipping it quickly, but I will flip it sometimes, and then it's pretty easy for this to just like kill your opponent over a few turns if you have time, and that deck is pretty good at like having a board stall where you have time. Innocent Traveler. This has been like pretty solid. It's not like the best rate or most aggressive creature. Like, I guess, I mean, it doesn't compare very favorably to Cruel Witness, which is just a 3/3 for 4 with upside. This is a 3/3 for 4 that is sometimes a 5/3, but not particularly reliably, and your opponent can sacrifice stuff to stop it from flipping. But black might be particularly in the market for it. I mean, it's fine, but it's not. This isn't like a good common. This is like a fine common. Archghoul of Thraben, I'm surprised, but I'm actually very surprised that both Archghoul of Thraben and Wedding Security and Edgar's Awakening, these 3 in particular, I'm surprised to see behind Innocent Traveler. Anyway, Archghoul of Thraben has seemed pretty good if you have like a good number of zombies. If you don't have quite a few, it's you probably shouldn't be playing it. It doesn't do, just like you don't really want a 3 mana 3/2 with no ability in it. Like you need to have a high enough zombie density that you're triggering it and hitting on a reasonable number of your triggers. Wedding Security. So I will say this is not the first time I've seen a 5 mana 4/4 that can take over a game have bad stats. Like 5 mana for a 4/4 is a pretty bad baseline. I have been demolished by this thing, but 5 mana for a 4/4 with no ETB is worse than you probably think it is. Edgar's Awakening. I've had good experiences with this when I have a lot of blood. When you have a lot of blood, you both might sometimes. I'm going to say you can discard an expensive thing and do the reanimator thing, but the real hard part there is actually having something that's worth doing that with. But I've had pretty good experiences just using this as a call to the Netherworld, which is a throwback that I expect very few people to catch, but it's a Madness Raised Dead. This does a very, very good impression of that. I've been pretty happy with the madness mode on this card. So I guess, the stats are bad. Be careful using it. I have had a deck where it was good. Skulking Killer. I don't know if this thing like becomes fine if you have a lot of removal spells. Like it does seem pretty good when you can trigger it. It's obviously horrible if you can't. I'm not sure if you should ever play this or not, is where I'm at with it. Groom's Finery is really bad, which means these next 2 cards must be horrible. Wow. So a little bit surprised by just how bad Bloodsworn Squire is, but apparently this card's quite bad. You should be playing the common 4 drops instead of playing this. And then Dreadfuge is obviously bad. Rares. All right. Dreadfeast Demon is like not just good; it's a complete joke. If you get 7 mana and you had another creature in play, you basically just win the game. If your opponent doesn't have an instant speed removal spell that can answer it, or you weren't like already basically dead. Voldaren Bloodcaster. I don't know if I've played against this one. I don't know it very well. I'm a little bit surprised the stats are as high as they are. I played against this once and it seemed kind of whatever. Obviously, 2/1 flyer that when it dies makes a blood is just like pretty good by itself. So I guess it's not that surprising that the stats are good. Because it has like a lot of upside over that. So sure, great 2-drop. You should take it very highly. Bloodveil Purveyor. This thing is absurd. Obviously, if you play it and your opponent plays a removal spell, they are up on that exchange. But there are a lot of removal spells that don't answer it, and it's a gigantic beating if they can't deal with it immediately. I guess you're pretty sad if this is targeted by Sigarda's Imprisonment, but blood has pretty significant diminishing returns. So like the worst case scenario with this, where this backfires and your opponent gets tons of blood, is still kind of whatever. And the best case scenario where you just play it, it's a 5/4 flyer and they die or 5/6 flying trampler and they die immediately is a pretty common result. Concealing Curtains is kind of a joke. I don't understand what's going on with this card. It's like you play it on turn 1 and then on turn 3 you activate it. And now you basically have a 3/4 haste menace that made them lose a card. You also potentially got to block before that. This card is just great in every direction. Falcon Wrath Forebearer. This card's obnoxious. The fact that it makes blood when it hits your opponent and has flying means that if you can't deal with it right away, like good luck ever dealing with it. 2 blood is a reasonably expensive amount of blood to spend to get it back if you don't connect with it. And obviously this only plays one way, but it's really good at playing that one way. Headless Rider. The floor here is a 3/1 that like basically a 3/1 Doom Dissenter for 1 extra mana, which is just like good by itself. Realistically, it's a lot better than that. It's another just like obviously very good rare. Graph Reaver. This is basically just a 3/3 that does a damage to you every turn, which is not particularly good. I have played it in sealed and it was fine, but it's definitely not like a good card. Dying to Serve has heinous stats. Would require a lot of blood to like do anything. Does things very slowly. Doesn't get started early. Doesn't surprise me that it's bad. Demonic Bargain seems like you probably kill yourself. People have only attempted to play it 32 times and only drawn it 10 times. I guess we're just all cowards. I think you kill yourself a lot of the time, and then when you don't kill yourself, you're way too likely to have gotten rid of whatever cards you were looking for. Mythics. Note that 17 lands, all of the cards that have 2 different colors of mana symbols on them anywhere, it counts as gold. So we're not seeing Toxrill, which is completely busted. You should, do whatever you can to put it in your deck. So that stuff will be covered when we get to gold cards. But anyway, it's not. That's why it's not here. Don't worry, it's great. Whatever. Enrique Dumbnaffy. I played against this once, and it's pretty unbelievable. Like they can just play it. You can just play it and immediately flip it into this like super Vampire Nighthawk, or you can like get other value out of it first. It's really really good. Um, Cemetery Desecrator. So this is a 4/4 menace for 6. When you play it, you kill something, and then when it dies, you kill something, is basically what it aspires to be, and it's pretty good at being that. Um, I will say that when I've played this with this once, and it definitely was appreciably more awkward than if it literally just killed anything when you played it and killed anything when it dies. Sometimes there are things that it can't kill, but it's still great. Um, and then Soren is a planeswalker that is good and limited. Um, these black mythics are all totally busted. You should just take them and play them. Um, and that covers black. Uh, Thanks for watching. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you are seeing it when it was first posted, come back tomorrow, I think, probably for blue and, or not blue, red. And if you are watching this on YouTube after that, you can move on to the next video and see red.